Hello and welcome to the Tuesday night music show. I have finally found a position in my chair with the microphone where I'm really comfortable. I'm chilling tonight.
That's a good thing.
I don't normally do that. I'm leaning forward. I don't know, something about the camera position and the mic. I'm relaxed in my lazy boy chair here.
For all of those that were concerned and had issue in writing the show,
if you were wondering,
your answer has now been delivered.
So tonight's show, just like all the
found peace. So if he falls asleep, I'll take over.
Stop that GoFundMe for that new office chair.
So I looked at an X chair. It was like $1,800. I'm like,
stop. Tonight's show is brought to you by DJ Event Planner. Just like always, have a look at DJ Event Planner and other sponsors down in the description of this video on YouTube. Now, okay. Anyway, I'm going to introduce everybody here tonight. Cricket. We got Matt from Georgia. We've got Eric from New Hampshire. We've got Jay from Temecula. And we've got Boston John with Boston John's Record Roundup. What do you got for us this week, my friend?
I brought along what we talked about this week, and we haven't had him on the show.
Ooh.
I've got Mr. Cool Mo D.
Cool Mo D. I know those shades.
Go see the doctor. It was on this. Wild Wild West came later. Another big jam from him. I thought he came along later in the game, but he was one of the first. This goes back to, I think, 83.
Wow.
Keep it real quick. No, I'm sorry. This is 86. But he says, thanks to Cool J, TLA Rock, Rakim, Eric B for breaking my style through. I thought they came around first, but that's in his head. He was ahead of them. So yeah, good dance tracks. A lot of his beats get, revitalized in remakes. Pretty smooth flow. He was Cold Crush initially. He was was he Treacherous 3? I think, Brian.
I don't know.
One of those guys when he was starting out. But this is like, when we say old school hip hop, this is how far back you gotta go back to the 80s. It doesn't start with Dre and Snoop. There's a whole legion of great hip hop performers that came.
I was all about Cool Mo D. How You Like Me Now was a great track.
That was my.
I think that's here. I think that's on this one. That's
on the album. How You Like Me Now, and as is Wild Wild West, and those were my favorites. That's what I actually really liked hip hop. That's like, ooh, this is cool stuff.
They're very good throwbacks, and that's the stuff you play. Like, oh my god, I haven't heard this in forever. You get that reaction, like, I remember this stuff. This was banging.
Yeah, kids, do check out Cool Mo D. Go See the Doctor is an early Cool Mo D track. The Wild Wild Wild, or I'm sorry, the How You Like Me Now album. I'm a big fan of it. It's a good album. The whole album is very listenable, and the reason I know that is because we used to listen to that on repeat quite a bit driving around. Had the cassette. Good stuff.
It is
good stuff. Jay,
I was going to do a soundtrack, but I'm like 99% sure I already did it. And it was going to be a single soundtrack. So if you don't have that, you should definitely look into it. But I realized I've not done these guys ever. And coming out of New York, there's music that you equate with places that isn't from there. And this album really, to me, was not an England album because the band is from England. And the band is Roxy Music, and the album is Avalon. And like To Turn You On is one of my favorite tracks ever. The big hits on this are Avalon, and the biggest hit on this is More Than This.
Yeah.
And it's just, the 80s we've had this talk ad nauseum. The 80s aren't going away because there's so much incredible music from that period.
Who covered More Than This? Was it Cranberries?
Yes. I
believe.
believe.
They covered it like famously in the 90s.
Yes.
To keep one of your phrases.
Yes.
Which is the version I'm most familiar with, but I know Roxy did it first. Yeah.
Roxy did it first. Yeah. And just an incredible album. And it came out early in the game. I mean, it came out in 82.
Was it? Okay.
So if you listen to it, it had this kind of moving forward. And I know they worked a ton with Brian Eno, and I'm not sure if Eno produced this. No, he didn't. Rhett Davies produced it.
That was probably later on, yeah.
But it's just got, if you need smooth 80s vibe or just smooth music, Brian Ferry, I think, has one of the better voices. It's it's not a range thing. It's just so smooth. Songs are really well written. The band broke up, and 3 of the members from the band ended up touring and playing with David Gilmour over the years. So they're really good musicians.
Yeah.
And it's just very, he always wore a suit. He was just very stylish, smoking Dunhill cigarettes and just being very smooth. He went out with Jerry Hall before Mick Jagger did. He was that guy. I would have loved, they're both, Brian Ferry's still alive. Robert Palmer isn't. I wanted so desperately to see Robert Palmer and Brian Ferry do like a duet on something or a project, because it just would have been the new romantic guys in suits, really classy, cool singer guys that
I don't even know if I'd call Brian Ferry new romantic. He was too tame for that. He was I would almost put him in the same category as like Spandau Ballet.
Yeah.
But
I look at Spandau Ballet as a little bit of new romantic, no?
Well, more so than Brian Ferry. The other one I'm thinking of that I know that some of the later ABC stuff had to have been inspired by Roxy music.
100%. Yeah, that's
like,
a great...
Be Near When Smokey Sings and all that stuff is kind of...
Oh, that's so Brian Ferry. Yeah.
It's almost bourgeois. I don't know how to describe it, but it's good.
It is. But it's funny. If you go and look at like Plain Jane and like the first couple albums, they were almost punk. Like if you go into their early catalog, they were very influenced by like the New York Dolls.
Uh-huh.
They were into that kind of crazy stuff, and he used to wear makeup and be kind of Peter Gabriel-ish.
Sure.
And then he suddenly put on the suit routine, and it became this kind of sexy, smooth, classy, like Slave to Love, which isn't on this album, but it's an incredible track.
Right.
And To Turn You On is just, if you've never heard To Turn You On, I highly suggest you listen to that, because that one will just blow your mind too. But he was ahead of the game. He did an album in 88, I believe, a solo album called Bête Noire. That the big track on that was Limbo, and the guitar work on all of the album is Johnny Marr from the Smiths. So it's got that Smiths kind of guitar vibe, but again, and let's be honest, if you put Morrissey in a suit, Morrissey had that sort of delivery a lot too. The classy frontman thing. He wasn't a screamer. He wasn't a weird. It's hard to describe, but there were singers in the 80s. Spandau Ballet, ABC. I would put Morrissey in there. Definitely Roxy Music, Robert Palmer. Different artists that had that ability. I think to a certain extent Duran Duran on
or Human League.
Human League, definitely.
Yeah.
Where they gave a classy kind of delivery. There wasn't that shock thing. It was like they were influenced by punk, but they were also influenced by, I think, Frank Sinatra-ish and things like that.
Yeah, it was almost Michael Bublé-ish in the look, but it was
fashion 100%. Was a big part for sure.
Yeah, it was they had that look. Classic. Less new romantic and more classic, I think, with those particular gentlemen. They may have been new romantic, but it felt more classic to me.
And it was charismatic almost. I mean, like they commanded a crowd. They had that Freddie Mercury, Michael Hutchins kind of vibe where the lead singers of these groups really stood out in the group. I think Hutchins is on his own level. Freddie Mercury was definitely on the pinnacle of that level.
Right.
Like no one came close. Right. But I think these other guys understood showmanship and presentation. So I definitely check out Avalon by Roxy Music.
Good pick, Jay. I like it.
Thank you.
Matt. You got
all right, time for Matt's cell phone pick of the week. I haven't been to the
check out Dua Lipa. You may have never heard of her, but here she is.
I have Brandy here. Yeah. Brandy's Never Say Never album. Couple of my favorites off of it, of course, you have The Boy Is Mine, which is the big hit. I believe Angel in Disguise was a pretty big one as well. One that I really started falling in love with in the last year or two is her cover of Bryan Adams' Everything I Do It For You. It's just really smooth, and I'm to the point where I try to work it into some cocktail hours, dinners, things like that. So worth checking out. Yeah.
What year is that?
1998.
98.
Gosh, 25 years. Wow.
Yeah, The Boy Is Mine was big.
The Bryan Adams one. That's good. I gotta have to give that a listen. Yeah.
I didn't know she did it either. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to check it out after.
I think I came across it on Beat Source or one of those things one day. Yeah.
So Eric,
look into that.
You got something for us to show us?
I
Focus.
do. I get to an album that was released in 81, but these guys were more popular, I think, in the 70s. And the album is Long Distance Voyager. Everybody got a... All right, these are the Moody Blues.
I was going to say, I was going to, that was my
Is
guess.
that what The Voice was on? I think the track was called?
Yeah, exactly. I think there were only 2 singles on it, really. The Voice and Gemini Dream.
Okay.
But The Voice would be my pick on that whole album. But
yeah, that was a big track.
I love that song. It's just,
Super smooth group, yeah.
That was one of
It's very Alan Parsons project.
Yes, yeah. It just, you can listen to it over and over too, which I have, you know.
Yeah.
Gemini Dream was a good track too, but I really like The Voice. But that's my pick. I mean, the rest of the album's okay. It's all right.
Sure.
It's not like the older Moody Blues where
Nights in White Satin and right.
Then there's Nights in White Satin. Don't forget that one and Nights in White Satin.
Well, that was like Moody Blues.
Oh, that's it too.
And absolutely amazing. But the Voice, I like stuff like that when the Moody Blues comes back or the Alan Parsons project comes back or even Yes comes back in the 80s. Like, hey, we can play too. And they do, and they do well. I really enjoyed that. It's just odd that any band would call themselves progressive and not progress. And
don't you think that was at the heart of Asia? Was all guys that were big in the 70s progressive rock that came back together as one group and said, well, here we are in the 80s. Look what we can do now. Because they were all members of ELP, Yes.
That
you know, they would, so
it was very
that proves your statement.
I like that. I like that. I appreciate it.
Check out Jethro Tull's at some point too. They had an album in the 80s. Same thing. It was like,
Lap of Luxury was the track, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, who's this? And it's like, oh, it's Jethro Tull. Wait, like sitting on a park bench, Jethro Tull? Like,
yeah. Well, you can tell, you know, Ian from
that flute thing kind of gives him away.
Like,
not too many flute solos.
Voice. I mean, you can't mistake his voice for anybody else's.
No.
He is Andrew Lincoln's father-in-law, for whatever that's worth.
Really?
Yes.
Real quick.
Yes, Andrew Lincoln is married to Ian Anderson's daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Steve Miller's uncle, through marriage, I believe, gave him guitar lessons when he was very little.
Not his uncle, just a family friend.
I read that it was his uncle. You know who I'm talking about?
Friend. Yes, I do, because I live here.
Yeah, that's right. Because they're
right by me.
Yeah, Les Paul. I will look into this. But I was to understand through marriage that he was related.
Maybe he was. I just thought they were friends, and they called him Uncle Les. Kind of like Stevie calls you Uncle Jay. Kind of like that, you know.
Okay, yeah.
I might be wrong.
Les Paul became Steve's godfather.
Okay, godfather. There you go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah, the Millers were the best man and matron of honor at the Les Paul Mary Ford wedding. Oh, there you go. So that was the Miller Ford thing.
They were good pals.
Godfather. Yeah. Perfect.
Crap, it's my turn, isn't it?
Fun facts.
So, we've talked about ministry before, and Jay has talked quite a bit about ministry as more of a hard band, like the 90s.
Psalm 69.
Psalm 69, New World Order. I've talked about things like Ministry's 12-inch singles with Every Day is Halloween. And
what is it, Sacrifice?
No. What else is there? It's Every Day is Halloween. It's Cold Life, All Day, tracks like that. There was a place in the middle, though, between like Stigmata and Every Day is Halloween that doesn't get mentioned much, and I really like it. And I was going to just turn you on to a track. Give it a listen. It's very dance industrial. And if you don't know the song, check it out. It was a staple in the clubs. This is Ministry, Over the Shoulder. This is a neat song. It's like I say, it's harder than Every Day is Halloween, but not as hard as Stigmata, but very dance. It's industrial dance stuff. This is kind of like Thrill Kill Cult. This is like Meat Beat Manifesto. This is like, that stuff. If you like that. Nine Inch Nails, early Nine Inch Nails had like a whole kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Is it like With Sympathy?
With Sympathy is an early album. That With Sympathy is where they had the theory and stuff with Revenge on it. That was the first album before Halloween and all that stuff.
He just did an interview about a week ago, and the girl interviewing him brought up the whole revisiting With Sympathy, and he said, man, I don't like doing that early stuff, but we listened to it, and we're going to rework some of the early stuff on their next tour. And With Sympathy is one of them, but they're going to rework it to be like the modern Ministry sound. So I don't know if that will appeal to people like you.
Probably not, because they're going to make it hardcore.
Sound. They're going to make it a little more hardcore.
They're going to make it hardcore. I like,
I think.
I like the Ministry dance stuff. That was always what turned me on.
Right.
In the clubs. That was fun stuff. And that was all the early stuff. With Sympathy, oh boy, With Sympathy almost sounds like Cure.
Oh, okay.
Like with tracks like Revenge, there's a track on there called I Wanted to Tell Her that's really good that you can check out that you might like. It's I don't know. It almost sounds like something between The Cure and Big Country. It's different. And then they did like a series of singles and eventually came up with the album 12-inch singles. There was no album for anything like Halloween and All Day and Cold Life. There was no album for that stuff.
Right.
But they collected it all in a collection called 12-inch singles. And then they did Twitch, which is what this is on. And then they got a little harder with Land of Rape and Honey. Then that was, Stigmata. And then from there, you got New World Order and Jesus Built My Hot Rod and all that stuff. But anyway, that's enough about Ministry. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
All right.
Nice.
Getting better.
Road Dog. You guys need to hear that? Road Dog.
Oh, sure.
Road Dog. Thank you.
Lots of time. Been working all day.
Oh, man.
We got in 2 minutes before the show.
Yeah, you did. And you got here before Jay.
Yeah.
Pretty magical. I've got a crazy week coming up. I've got 2 tomorrow starting at noon. And then I've got 1 Friday. Pardon?
You have 2 gigs tomorrow?
Sort of. It's for the same client.
I know the gig you're talking about. You can explain it, but I think it's the one you told me about.
Yeah, it's like 2 separate events for the same client. I'm doing a session between noon and 2:30, and then I'm doing a session between 4 and 6:30. Right. So there's like an hour and a half in between, but it's kind of like 2 gigs.
Yeah.
And I got a text, I don't know, around noon today where there was a venue change less than 24 hours before start time.
That's odd.
Yeah. A different city, different county.
Wow.
How far away from the original?
Oh, it's a horse apiece, pretty much, coming from where I'm coming from.
Right. So it's not like
here I go up Milwaukee County. So it's about the same. It was in a really good area. It's not in a sketchy area, but it's not in such a nice area as the other one was.
Right.
But it's in a fine. The area's fine. It's
this is the zoning laws on that sort of gig,
Well, have you guys ever had that where I've had that once where it's like, yeah, the gig is happening 4 miles from your house. And then a couple weeks out, it's like, hey, we hate to do this, but we're moving the gig. It's like, oh, where are you moving it to? Oh, we're moving it to City of Industry. I'm like, that's like 65 miles away.
Right.
Yeah. and you're kind of stuck because they bring it to you as, is that going to be okay? And now you're in the driver's seat of, do I negotiate? Do I say, no, it's not okay? And I think that one, I just said, I'm sorry, but there is an additional charge. We kind of figured that because of the travel. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing 130 miles round trip.
Right.
I think I charged them like $75 for gas.
Yeah.
And it was like, they were cool with it.
Sure.
Because they realized that part of the fee was I'm driving 4 miles.
Right.
And by the way, maybe that's a general question. Do you guys base fees on the lack of travel and the option of travel? Meaning, if you get a call and there's an event space within 2 or 3 miles of your house, in your head, if you were going to charge them, making up numbers, normally $1,000 on a Saturday for 4 hours, and they say, hey, it's happening at this gig right down the street, yada, yada, yada. If they said, we were hoping to stay around 900, would you be like, yeah, that's 4. Yeah, I'll do it for 9 because it's only 4 miles away.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you right now that, the club that I'm working at, the reason that I'm so cool with everything is because I'm so close.
Right. Okay.
You know, when I was working at the same club in the 90s, I was living outside of the city, way outside of even the metro area.
Right.
So it was about a 45-minute drive, and parking
At
was
2 in the
better
morning.
than-
Yeah, it's a hike.
Yeah. So,
And drunks are on the road. And
but I'm 21. I care, you know,
you
whatever.
didn't care. Yeah, no.
Or I'm crashing at my girlfriend's house or whatever, you know, but yeah, now a big part of me being all in at the club is because it's so close.
Right.
If it was further away, it would still be worth my while, but it's a sweet deal because it's close.
Yeah.
know?
We actually have a lake house here that's, I think it's 0.3 of a mile from my house. And I did a video. I did a wedding there years ago and did a POV video driving to the gig.
Uh-huh.
And got in the van and said, okay, I've got to drive to my gig now. Pulled out of the driveway, went left. You know, it's days like this when you get over there and I'm there.
Right.
Like
I've done that.
literally,
Yeah.
and
I've
I'm
done that
there.
with the yacht club behind my house too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where you're like, and I arrived.
Yeah.
And people have called me and been like, hey, it's a Saturday. I'm already not, I'm not booked yet. I'm like, what are the hours? Oh, it's going to be 3 to 6. Perfect.
Sure.
I'm not going to
do it.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
because you've got to be realistic.
You've got those special circumstances where it's like a block away, and I've got that here.
Yeah.
With the yacht club, and there's also a pavilion right behind my house. I've never played it, but it's there, and people do play it, and we've got the same address. It's literally right behind my house, just a different street.
Oh, yeah, I know where it is. Well, they don't, but I do.
Yeah, you've seen it, the pavilion.
No, it's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. And then there's also the other thing, which is kind of what I like to call my local area.
Right.
And that's within an hour drive of my house.
Yeah.
And then we go beyond that. And I also have border crossing. If I've got to go over into Illinois, it's a little different too.
Well, and I found you guys in the Midwest. And when I say you guys, I'm talking about a lot of different areas of the Midwest that I would talk to at DJ shows back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when they would haul a trailer behind their truck or car.
Yeah.
And it was nothing to hear them talking about, yeah, my wedding Saturday is in, Racine. Oh, where do you live? Oh, I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, it's about a 4-hour drive, but I'm like, dude, I can get to Vegas in 4 hours. Like, I don't think anyone's ever hired. And I'm like, are you getting a hotel? Are you staying over? Like, when you realize different parts of the country have a different outlook on travel. Like for me, my wedding Saturday, I have to drive to San Diego. So 55 miles, 60 miles, and I'll be done at midnight, 12:30, drive home. I don't think of that as a really big deal. But now that I'm paying $6.59 for gas today, now suddenly I've got to start thinking, where's the cutoff on gas?
Well, going to Chicago last weekend, just for instance, just talking about this distance thing.
Yeah.
It was a little over an hour for me to get down there. It was all freeway. Just go.
Yeah.
And when I was leaving at the end of the night, I was talking to the sound tech. I said, yeah, I got to go back to Milwaukee tonight. He's like, oh, wow, man.
Yeah.
He's like, well, where do you live? I asked him, and he said, oh, I live in Crown Point, Indiana. It's like, yeah. So it's not that unusual, I guess, for people to make those hauls.
Well, whenever I go to San Diego and I say, yeah, I got to head home. Oh, where do you live? Temecula. Oh, way up there. And it's like, it's only 60 miles away, but it's a different county. Yeah. It's up a free, there's that sense of it. Last week being in New York and hanging out and seeing Jeffrey Kwan from Canal Sound and Lighting. Great guy, great store. They had to do a drop off and a pickup. And I saw them on walking back to my hotel. I actually saw them doing the drop off pickup. And they're like pulled over to the side, double parked, trying to hustle gear in and out. And I'm like, if I complain to these guys about, oh my gosh, my parking spot is like 4 more over than I want, they'd probably kill me. Because for those guys, like I'd be terrified. Even when I go to Boston now, I never DJ'd in Boston. So I look at all those hotels and just think to myself, hey, parking is ridiculously expensive, as is New York City.
Yeah. And
loading in and out in a big truck or a van, I'd be terrible. I'd be like, no, I'll work the suburbs.
Yeah.
I just don't have that, and we've all done this. I've pushed a rock and roll cart with, $5,000 worth of gear and CD bags over the sidewalk at, 1:30 in the morning in downtown San Diego to go 2 blocks to my car, trying to get through drunks. And you're like, oh, no big deal. I just made $350. This was a great night. And you realize, like, today, I don't even want to, I didn't even bring my Pioneer DJ backpack to New York last week because I was like, let's be low key.
Yeah.
So
don't announce what you have. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, Eric's in New Hampshire. I know he gigs in New Hampshire, but he does a lot in Mass. Now, granted, it might not be that far of a drive. And even for John, he's in Quincy, which is kind of southeast of Boston a little bit. But he can get in and out of Boston in 10 minutes. But it's not
this
getting
week.
there. No.
It was like 2 hours to go 9 miles last week.
Yeah, it's the parking and it's the load-in. Here's one. Do you guys in your head know that there are event places you work where the load-in is so difficult you automatically add money to the gig? I have 5 of them where I add money. Like, if my fee is $1,500 for the
nuisance
gig,
fee,
it goes to $1,650 for that gig.
Yeah.
And if I lose that gig, that's okay because I know what I have to put up with.
Or I say I'm booked. That if it's that much of a hassle, I'm already booked. I'm sorry. Here's John Cawley's number. He'll do.
Yeah.
As long as it's not south the upper flight of stairs. Yeah.
With your setup, Brian, where you've got even more to contend with, do you already in your head before you accept a gig, do you look at load in? Do you look at these sites and go, you know what, that place doesn't have an elevator for a fact, and I know I've got 2 flights of stairs. It's not worth the hassle.
I kind of have to.
Yeah, because the juice isn't worth the squeeze at times.
Right.
John talked me out of doing a gig in Boston. Remember that, John?
Yeah.
You said there's no elevator. You got to go up a flight and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm already booked, guys.
Yeah, and the parking stinks, and just like so many red flags at that place. But
look, I get winded getting my mail. Okay, I'm not loading, going up and down stairs. That
and you got to pay someone to come with you because you need to have someone out of the vehicle.
Yeah, there are gigs. I mean, there are gigs in San Diego on 4th of July where it gets packed. Where I've had to go the night before with Michelle with 2 cars, park a car where in a great spot. Leave, go back home, then the next day have her drive me there, do the gig so I can walk out of the gig and there's the car. And I mean, you're putting in a lot more time at that point. You're putting in extra effort.
Jay, do you remember that video I did years ago where I was trying to load out in a thunderstorm and my stuff fell down a hill? And
in the museum?
No,
like in that park?
Yes. In that
yes,
park.
I do. Oh, yes, I do.
That horrible
yes, I do. It was a S show.
Yes,
I remember that.
Yeah, it's a video
you got to see this video.
It's still there.
Try to put a link in the show notes because let me tell you, that was a video. This poor dude. This was pre-stroke too.
Yeah,
this was pre-stroke, and he's like, "Okay, I'm here at the event," and it's like from here to like 5 football fields away. Okay, over there in the distance is the event space, but I'm parked here. Let me roll in, and all of a sudden, thunder, lightning, rain. Oh, by the way, I have to move from the ceremony site, which is in a botanical garden or something, to another spot. And he's going to load out. It's pitch black. Oh, it was an absolute mess.
Well, the place, anyway, you can't get into the park. You can't access the park with a vehicle. It's got this round, narrow walking tunnel. So you can't back a vehicle into it. You have to unload in this parking lot, then go through this walking tunnel, and then this windy deal, along a river to this beautiful old historic pavilion. So I did this, dragged the stuff on my cart. I had just bought my first set of LED lights, and I had them on a T-bar. And at the end of the night, I'm packing up, and it's like a severe thunderstorm, terrible thunderstorm. And I said, I got to sit here. I got to wait for the storm to be over to say, nope, you're leaving now because we're locking up. Get out of here.
Kicking you out.
Are you serious? You're not going to let me? Nope, go now. So luckily, I was smart enough at the time to carry some industrial garbage bags in my laptop bag that I could cover some things with, like cover speakers with and things. So I did. And I tried to cover my lights on the top best I could. And I'm going out of the park in the storm, and the sidewalk kind of dips a little bit. There's a puddle there. My cart long story short, my lights tumbled down the hill into a puddle. My brand new lights. So I let them dry out for a week or whatever, but I swore I'll never play this venue again. Like, this is off. And when I was out on the boat last week with Art and the kids, I don't know if you saw those pictures or not. We went on Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, it was fun. And then after, we went to this really cool restaurant that you could, access by boat. They had docks there. You just dock your boat and go eat. You can get there from the road too, whatever. And I was over in the smoking section that is designated where you stand there and do that.
Back alley.
And I noticed a sign that said Hubbard Park Lodge Office. I'm like, that sounds familiar. What is that? And a lady who worked there was there. Says, oh yeah, we manage that too. I'm like, I know I've played there. It's just, it's a park. It's on Capitol Drive. I'm like, oh my God, you're giving me flashbacks.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling her this story.
Misery.
She's laughing. And she says, Bob, come over here. Listen to the story about this experience he had at Hubbard. And I'm telling her, like, oh my God, that's terrible. We've been managing it for 5 years now. We would never let that happen to you. We have a golf cart. We bring all the people in and out with a golf cart. We would never put you out in the rain. We've heard terrible stories about how they used to run things there. So if you ever get booked there again, we promise we'll take care of you. So anyway, that was just came to mind.
A solution. I think I told you guys I did a gig last summer in July at a place called the Wild Safari Park, and it's part of the San Diego Zoo, and it's just what it sounds like. It's a huge safari park, so it's got elephants, cheetahs, lions, tigers, the whole deal. And they have 5 wedding venues, but one of the caveats is you are not allowed to drive into the park. So you drive into a parking area, so you load your vehicle. For me, it's about a 40-minute drive. You get there, then you unload your vehicle into a van. And I specifically said, should I bring my rock and roll cart? No, I'm going to drop you off where you're setting up. Great. And Jimmy, this obviously new employee, it's a 5-minute ride in a Ford Transit. We get there and he stops and he goes, okay, this is where you load in. And I look at him and I go, where am I set up? He's like, right over there. Right over there. I measured it because I had to walk every piece of gear individually over because I had no cart.
Right.
Say 178 feet from the van to where I set up, which meant. So
hold on. I gotta.
Yeah. Seriously. So
Making him winded. Yeah.
It was so bad that when I got all the gear over there, I went over to the woman in charge and I said, hey, I'm not complaining, but you gotta help me. She goes, what do you need? I said, I was told I didn't need a cart. My cart is in my car. I have to set up for a wedding. I have 2 full systems, ceremony over here, reception over here. I said, if I give you guys my car keys, will you go down, unlock my car, get my rock and roll cart, and bring it back to me? Because this is insane. She goes, you walked all your gear over here? Why didn't you bring your cart? I go, because I asked the driver and he said, no, you don't need a cart. I'm dropping you off where you set up. She goes, oh, I'm really, I've got forgiveness. Sure. She goes, I'm really sorry. He's pretty new. He thought he was dropping you off on a different spot, but there's no way to get there. I said, I'm cool with that, but please, it's hot and humid.
It's a thing.
I do not want to, in 5 or 6 hours, walk back all my gear because then I have to unload it again. So normally, as all DJs know, we load the truck, then we unload it, then we load it, and then we unload it. So there's 4 loads. This gig, it was load the car, unload and load another car, unload that car and set up, load that car, then unload that car, then load my car, then unload my car. And I'm like, gosh, you're killing me.
Right.
So
you don't need gym memberships, right?
I made that mental note and what's sad is I said there's 5 spots. The last time I worked there, I worked a different spot where you can drive literally right up to where you set up and then park down at the hill and then come back up. But this was like, at first they came up with a golf cart, by the way. a 2-seat golf cart. Yeah, we're here to take you up to the wedding venue. I'm like,
What's
I
that
got
got to do?
what? No,
Yes.
I have all this. Oh, we've got a van, but it's going to be another 10 minutes. I'm like,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm curious though, this wedding, what was there like? Animals and everything running around while everything's going on?
You're
serious.
no, I'm serious. You're overlooking different areas. And what they'll do is to enhance the experience, and I don't have them readily available, but somewhere I have photos where they will bring like a cougar or a cheetah or some sort of wild cat up on a chain and let you take photos. And then they'll bring some big cockatoo or, they'll bring animals up because where you're set up, you're looking down on a field where there's rhinos and gazelles and giraffes. I mean, it's really beautiful. Like if you like
going
that
on while
vibe,
they're dancing or no?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
My high school prom was in the brand new Welcome Center, which was part of the primate house at the Milwaukee County Zoo.
Well,
Yeah.
your DJ wasn't as dumb as me, I bet. Because
I worked for him for 2 years after
joked
that.
with the bride and groom because the bride and groom were at a different venue that got closed. So they had to scramble and they go, hey, we're moving from that venue 10 miles from your house to this venue. Oh, okay. And it was too late in the game to say, well, that's a pain in the ass load in. I need another $150.
Right. Just make it happen.
But she jokingly said, hey, you should play some animal effects. I was like, yeah, that'll kind of freak people out. Again,
And the animals.
sometimes
Yeah.
in a wild animal park. So I couldn't find a lot of wild animal sound effects. I could find a lion roaring. And there was a bunch of giraffes on the edge of where we were.
This is how the stampede began.
My hand to God. I'm in the middle of cocktail and I hit a sound effect sample and you hear this lion roar. And suddenly I hear this little girl go, Mommy, the giraffes are all running away. And I look over and these giraffes are hightailing it away. And I'm like, I have to completely just straight face, like when you've made a bad mistake and you can't let on. Like what? Oh, the mic cut out? Oh, nope. I'm not going to let you know. Oh yeah, no, the bride and groom were there and the bride heard it and laughed and then looked and kind of looked at me and I was just like, no, we're just,
So we're done with this.
yeah. And I'm the idiot that downloaded the effect. I'm like, oh, this would be so awesome. I'll hit a wild.
Yeah.
People think there's animals wild here.
Well,
I'm
at
like,
least, something didn't hop the fence and try to mate with you or something.
well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Like, but apparently they take into consideration to put animals together that aren't prey to each other.
Well, of course, so
me introducing, right. So me introducing the king of the jungle apparently was not
Yeah.
but you think.
Giraffe will never forget that day.
I worked on boats for years. I was the one that in the beginning was like, started playing the little, hey, let's play the whole, here's a tale of a faithful ship. And then it dawned on me one night, I was like, wait a second, that gets lost at sea.
Yeah.
In the bay.
It
We
sank.
can't get lost at sea. We're in the bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when Titanic broke, I was still with the boats. And we would get people, and I'm like, I don't know, that sank.
Yeah.
But they were like, oh, no, you got to play the Celine Dion. I love that. It's that first dance. I'm like, he's dead, right?
I remember Ben Stowe was talking about a gig he did on Lake Michigan, and they kicked him off the boat because he played Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Oh, geez. Here we go.
And he doesn't understand why. I'm like, are you nuts?
What are you, crazy?
Of course they kicked you off the boat.
And, he's so
Lucky you took
innocent
him back
about
to
it.
land. Throw him off the boat in the ocean.
This is a song about boats. No, it's a tragic song, Ben, that they died here. All 38 or 39 of them, and they're still out there somewhere. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, everyone's got that thing, you gotta watch the tweaks. There's inappropriate songs at every event. I don't have one this year because I was in New York, probably never going to happen in my life again, but I was in New York on 9/11.
Right.
And in my career in the last 22 years, 9/11 has been on a weekend. I've had 3 weddings on 9/11, and the first one was literally like within 2 years of it. Was a Saturday or a Friday, and the bride and groom kind of didn't think it through, which then it was so publicized. I don't know how.
Right.
But she said, oh, yeah, you should probably do like a moment of silence or something. If you could announce that, I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Right.
Like,
Or ask your pastor
it was an afterthought thing because they didn't think it through. Like, because you guys screwed up. It shouldn't be my punishment. Now it makes it look like it's coming from me.
Usually they'll come up. Someone will ask for Lee Greenwood or something. Do something just to acknowledge it and then move on.
Well, yeah, that one made sense.
Not saying this jokingly, but like they probably their venue probably offered them a good deal because they have trouble booking that date. So they just got excited about, okay, this place will take us on the 11th and this is really good deal. So, they probably just lost sight of that. Like, oh, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the next year.
What was their first dance? God Bless America or what?
You know what? It was one of these couples that didn't really, I doubt they're still married. Put it that way.
Well, most of them aren't.
Yeah.
That's the good news.
Yeah, no,
I DJ for any more than a few years, and you feel like maybe you made a mistake here and there. It probably doesn't matter.
No, I'm confident, and I'll tell you when it was. It was 2004 because 9/11 was a Saturday in 2004.
Sure.
I know it was only a few years after, and it was one of those like you should say something about it. I'm like, we're at a wedding. Why don't we just let that be its own thing, and you make this your day,
Right?
But everyone picks a day that could be tragic, or the giveaways on the first, New Year's Day, or, I've done a Christmas Day wedding. That was weird.
That is
That's very weird.
I've done New Year's Eve's, New Year's Day. I'm sure you guys went through this early in the century too. We got big money to do like 222, 333, 444. The big one that I got huge money that was a Saturday was 777.
Yeah.
And that was a great wedding day. And it was,
I missed all of those digit days.
I charged $2,500 in 2007 to do a 6-hour wedding because it was 777.
Yeah, I missed all the digit days. I didn't cash in on that.
And they didn't do a 7-hour wedding.
That was the beauty of it. 333 was like March 3rd was happened on a Wednesday or Tuesday or something. But people that get into numerology, I guess,
I have a hard time anytime there's like this moment of silence thing that happens because I don't know what I'm supposed to do except not talk.
I think it's
always abrupt, So
I was in the middle of something. Yeah, it's in the middle of something usually.
I was at a car show.
Screaming. Right, they're screaming, and all of a sudden someone goes, "And now let's have a moment of silence." And you're like, oh, wait, I just came from screaming, and then at the end of this, I'm going to make more noise clapping for the moment of silence I just didn't make any noise for.
Right.
So I understand.
I was looking at a hot rod and trying to figure out what was going on with the carb setup, and all of a sudden I have to be quiet, and I don't know why because I didn't catch that part, but I have to be quiet. I don't understand that.
It's a thing.
It's uncomfortable,
right? But you have so many, and this is one of the things, and you point out a great point. As a DJ, we have to make ourselves not only comfortable, but we have to make ourselves available for everyone that goes through different things.
Yeah.
Example, hey, which side is the bride's side? The left side. You sure? Yeah, I'm the DJ. I'm positive. Hey guys, I need you to line up for the wedding party introduction. And if this is a helpful hint to all of you, by all means use it. And all of a sudden I'd see these guys lined up on looking at the crowd. The guys are suddenly on my right and the girls are on the left. I'm like, guys, you have to move to the other side. What do you mean? Gentleman always escorts to the right side of the woman. Always. You sure? And I've had like 10 couples, whatever. And I would just say, a man's right hand is available to shake hands, to salute, to draw his weapon, or to draw his sword. And everyone goes dead silent. And they look at me like, okay, he's got longish hair, but like, is he like a former Green Beret? Is he going to kill us now or something?
He knows things about
Came out of nowhere. And I just said, it doesn't matter if you're left-handed. A man never shakes hands with his left hand.
I do.
You do. Okay. I was like, the worst time I could have ever said that. Brian's here. That's right. I forgot. But that's different. Right. Exactly. But it's not. It's by
I call it the reach around. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay. That I would
means.
change too. That's something that, I remember back when I went by the name of Bart St. Adams. You want to lose that reach around.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And by the way, last week, don't think I didn't make a lot of fun of a piece of equipment called the Dazzler. I'm like, guys, wrong name. You should have called me. It's a spark machine. I'm like, the worst name you could have come up with. Because I'm pretty sure Doc Johnson made this first and sold it at Frederick's Hollywood. But if you don't get the reference, you're too young. Don't worry. By the way, Seika called and she knows what the Dazzler is. So there's another reference you can look up. Don't worry, John Young won't get Seika.
All right, Grandpa. Thanks for that heads up. Appreciate it.
Yeah. But always, guys, always women on your left, always 100% of the time you escort to your left because you got to keep your right hand available. Shake hands, salute, draw sword, draw weapon. But I'm a lefty. Well, it doesn't matter. Even if Brian was escorting, she'd be on his left. It's just the way it goes. No, actually, it wouldn't. Brian would make a point of switching gears. It's not. It's always the woman to your left because you need that.
I would just keep her out of traffic. So if I'm walking the way I should probably be walking down the sidewalk, and the traffic's here, she's on my right. But if I'm walking the opposite direction, she's on my left.
That's true. She keep them between
Let's keep her out of traffic.
Yourself between them.
But here's the thing: and you bring up an interesting point. A gentleman should also always walk closest to the street when with a woman, 100%. And Michelle and I will be out where a local adult beverage establishment, and it always blows my mind how many guys walk up the sidewalk. The woman is on the curb, the guy's on the inside. And you bring up a valid point, Brian. If you're looking at a street, there's two sides, obviously, of sidewalks. If you're walking on the outside closest to the curb on one side, you're on the woman's right side. Mm-hmm. Now you go to the other side of the street. Well, technically, if you're walking in the same direction, you now are still to the woman's right side.
But not closest to the curb.
It still works out.
You should cross the street.
You can still end up doing what I'm saying about being on, have her to your left.
You just got to really hope you don't need to reach for a sword or a weapon or a pistol.
If you need to draw your sword,
cross the street first, then draw your sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, but this is where I think DJs need to make those stands where it's like, hey, we've got a question. What's the tradition? I've only had a couple couples who came in. I have one this week where they're doing their cake cutting before dinner. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. You're doing that early. Like, we wanted to get it done. I said, oh, but more importantly, you're actually feeding each other before the meal. And that's the whole premise of the cake cutting. It's the first time you're supposed to be feeding each other. And it makes no sense sometimes when it's done after dinner because you already ate. Because that's the traditional history of it. This is that first opportunity. I had a wedding years ago where they were like, we're doing the cake before the first dance, grand entrance cake, first dance, because we want to honor the tradition of feeding each other before we dance or eat. I'm like, good for you guys. So, have all these tools in the tool belt when clients ask you questions.
Yeah.
Hey,
I was looking at it from a practical issue, because where I live, that's dessert. And as soon as dinner's over, you can have dessert. Catering can get that stuff ready for you, while everyone's eating their entree. And then when entree's over, dessert can be ready. So It's practical in that regard.
Well, and if you can have them serve the cake do you guys all do your toast after dinner?
I like to do it during entree, but everybody does it different.
A lot of our venues, because they want to clear the tables so there's no plates for photos. So we do the toast at the end of the meal once the tables are cleared. And I try to talk my clients into, let's do the cake during dinner or before, and then have them prep it so that when they clear the tables, they can drop the cake, pour the champagne, and now the guests have cake and champagne, and then we're not on the table anymore for doing stuff besides dancing.
I love weddings. I just think they're so cool.
But isn't it amazing? You and I, what's the year you did your first wedding?
89.
Mine was 96. So, John, what was your first year?
Had to be tail end of the 80s, probably.
So, I mean, involving Matt, Eric, yours has got to be what, 70s? 80s? 84.
70s.
I meant 1870s too, dude.
84. I'm not, yeah.
Okay. So we're talking between us, we're over 200 years of doing weddings. And yet they're always a little different. Right. They always tweak a little bit to one way or the other.
Yeah.
But look at the joy look at what this kind of group of professionals can bring to anyone on any day of the week to make their day special by having all this knowledge and experience. And that's what I think shows like this really drive that point home.
But can't we say this? No two weddings are alike, ever.
No, they're not.
No two weddings are alike.
Ever so slightly, things are in different places.
Yeah.
Just subtle things,
and
but we notice.
I would recommend different things. And like, what do you suggest? And what I suggest for one wedding might be totally different than the way I'll suggest to go for another one.
Totally. Well, you're new and you're wrong, but that's not the point. I think really, let's get back to the old guys that have been doing this for a minute. You're at the kids' table over there on the side with the iPhone, okay?
Principal's office for you.
Here's an iPad, Matt. Just play with something, okay? Just keep yourself out of trouble.
Don't eat the crayons.
It's like you can always suggest it within the realm of this. And I always say, this is tradition. This is how it goes. Like, one last real quick point. The new trend I'm seeing from coordinators is to have the groom go in by himself. And I'm like, okay, where's the officiant? He's going in first, right? Oh, I guess so. Okay, let's have the officiant go in. And the groom is coming in, then the best man? No. Where's the best man? Excuse me, the best man's escorting the maid of honor. I'm like, oh, okay, that's new. What do you mean? Well, the maid of honor always walked alone in front of the bride because the best man stayed with the groom. That's the tradition. If I got married in a church, when we walked out on the altar, it was the priest, myself, and the best man. Then the groomsmen came in escorting the bridesmaids. The maid of honor came in alone, and then my wife came in. That's my wedding. That was the tradition we chose. And you can mess it up. But the one that I don't understand is when they say, yeah, the groom comes in, then the mothers. I'm like, okay, I got to say something. What do you mean? Why would you want the mothers to come in after the groom is in? The parents and grandparents should come in before the groom so they're able to watch him walk
right.
But I face coordinators and different people going, oh, no, that's not how we do it here. I'm like, well, you're wrong. And I'll go to my clients and be like, I don't have a contract with them. I have it with you.
Yeah.
You guys tell me what you want, but here's the options. Do you want your mom and grandparents to see you walk in, or is that not a big deal? Oh, we didn't think about that. I'm like, well, yeah, that's actually how it's always been done. My cue for Prelude was the parents and grandparents are coming in. Okay, that's the first song I start with.
Well,
then the groom, best man.
Making this stuff up as they go anyway.
But that's the part that kind of bothers me. Like, if you want to get, then you know what, Brian?
I like anarchy like that.
I know, but if you don't want the pomp and circumstance, go to the courthouse, sign the paperwork, and don't deal with it. But if you want to go through it, at least respect the process a little.
James is incredibly British about the pageantry on this one,
and do it right.
I like the pomp and circumstance. I do, because I also like the fact that for me personally, I mean, I've only been married 23 years, but it's like I got into this game. I only wanted to do it once. I don't ever want to go through it again. God forbid I ever find myself in a position that I am not married. I'm never going to do it again. I don't care. I won't be that old codger going like, yeah, let's have a wedding. No. There's, hello, who do you have working tonight? Yeah, send her. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
And on that note,
any specials?
Yeah.
On that note, we
got a 2-for-1? No? Okay.
Have fun naming this show, John. Whoever.
Call it Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, 2027 sometime. We don't know.